Hello everyone, a warm welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Rina and you are watching Master in English, where we explore insightful books and learning strategies to enhance productivity and personal growth. Today we will dive into an inspiring story based on the this book, The Now Habits by Neil, a book that helps overcome procrastination and develop a mindset of action. So let's understand this book with the help of a beautiful story. This is the story of Rohan. So let's start with the story. Rohan stared at his laptop screen, the cursor blinking mockingly at him. His thesis deadline was just 2 months away, yet he had barely written a page. The weight of unfinished tasks, missed gym sessions, and unread books piled up in his mind, making him feel like he was sinking into quicksand. Every day he promised himself that tomorrow would be different. But when tomorrow came, he found himself scrolling through social media, watching one more episode, or convincing himself that he worked better under pressure. He often blamed his lack of motivation. But deep down, he knew the problem ran deeper. He was not lazy. He was stuck in a cycle of avoidance. The more he delayed, the heavier the burden became, pushing him further into self doubt and guilt. The pressure to be perfect paralyzed him. Instead of taking small step forward, he avoided the task altogether. One evening, Irohan was binge watching a web series. His phone buzzed. It was his friend Akash, who had just received an admission letter from a prestigious university. You won't believe it, man. I finally got it. I worked hard and it paid off, Akash said, his voice full of excitement. Rohan congratulated him but felt a deep pang of guilt. He had dreamed too. But what was he doing to achieve them? No. That night, unable to sleep, he searched for solution to his chronic procrastination and stumbled upon The Now Habit by Neil. Reading through the first few pages, he discovered something shocking. Procrastination was not about laziness but fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being perfect, fear of disappointing others. He recognized himself in the descriptions. Every time he sat down to write, his mind raced with doubt. What if my ideas are not good enough? What if my professor criticizes my work? These thoughts drained his energy before even started making avoidance the easier option. As Rohan read further, he realized that his approach to work had been flawed from the start. He saw work as something to be endured, a punishment that robbed him of a joy. His childhood memories reinforced this growing up. He had been scolded for getting anything less than a A grade, making him associate work with anxiety rather than achievement. He understood the cycle of guilt and self criticism only worst his procrastination. The book introduced a powerful concept, self compassion. Instead of blaming himself for his procrastination, he needed to understand it. He had to acknowledge that his fear was natural but not insurmountable. One of the book's strategies that intrigued Rohan was the unscheduled, a concept where he had to first plan his fun activities before work. He seemed counterintuitive, but the author argued that rewarding oneself first reduced resistance to work. Rohan scheduled his morning gym session, a movie night on Friday, and an evening walk with his sister. For the first time, he felt excitement rather than dread while planning his week. Initially skeptical, Rohan gave it a try. He listed his non work commitment first, his gym sessions, meals, and relaxation breaks. Before penciling in work, this flipped his perspective. Instead of feeling like work was taking over his life, he now saw free time as a given. Work became a part of his schedule rather than looming burden. Another breakthrough came when Rohan adopted the 30-minute spirit method. Instead of worrying about completing an entire chapter in one setting, he set a timer for 30 minutes and focused only on writing. To his surprise, once he got started, he often went beyond the timer. The simple act of staring or starting without a burden of huge commitment made all the difference. At first, he struggled with distractions. His mind wandered, urging him to check his phone or grab a snack. But he resisted, telling himself, it's just 30 minutes. I can handle that. After a few days, he noticed a shift. The anxiety that used to grip him before writing began to fade. Writing was not perfect, but it was happening, and that was progress. A week into his new approach, Rohan faced his first major challenge, writer's block. Earlier, he would have shut his laptop and escaped into the world of YouTube. But now he applied another lesson from the now habit, shifting from self criticism to self compassion. Instead of telling himself, I am useless at writing, he thought, I am making progress. And all first drafts are messy. He took a break, went for a short run, and returned to his desk with renewed clarity. He also reframed his mindset. Instead of seeing writing as a test of his intelligence, he saw it as a learning process. It was not about being perfect, it was about improving. And that single shift made a world of difference. Author emphasized that the importance of play and relaxation in boosting productivity. Rohan experimented by taking short breaks after completing focused work sessions. He danced to his favorite song, played chess online, and even reconnected with his old friends over coffee. To his amazement, he was still getting work done more than ever before. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a failure. He was working, progressing, and most importantly, enjoying the process. The guilt that used to haunt him was fading. As weeks passed, Rohan noticed something strange. He was no longer afraid of his work. His thesis was progressing steadily, and the stress that once loomed over his had faded. He had learned to acknowledge small wins, which kept him motivated. Completing a single page became a reason to celebrate, and every productive day reinforced his confidence. The biggest change was not in his habits, but in his mindset. He no longer saw work as an enemy. Instead, he embraced it as a challenge he could conquer, one step at a time. With the deadline just a week away, Rohan's old habit tried to creep back in. The pressure of perfection returned, and he was tempted to procrastinate. But this time he was prepared. He reminded himself that work was not punishment but part of his growth. He used his technique, sprint, and the schedule and self kindness to push through the final stretch. The day finally arrived when Rohan submitted his thesis and he hit send. He hit send. He felt a wave of relief and accomplishment. It was not just about finishing his thesis, he had concluded a long time or lifelong struggle. Looking back, he realized that the biggest shift was not just in his habits but in his mindset. He was no longer a prisoner of procrastination. Instead, he had learned to take actions in the present, to embrace the now habit. Okay, so let's understand this book with the help of another story. Okay, Arav was a talented graphic designer with big dreams, but his biggest enemy was himself. He had a vision for his career, a dream of working with top companies and goal of launching his own creative agency. Yet every time he sat down to work, distractions took over. He would find himself scrolling through social media, reorganizing his desk, or making yet another cup of tea. All while his deadlines loomed closer, he convinced himself that he worked best under pressure. But deep down, he knew it. It was just an excuse. One evening, after missing yet another client deadline, he found himself staring at his reflection in his laptop screen. Frustration welled up inside him. Why can't I just get things done? That's when he stumbled upon The Now Habit by Neil Force. Skeptical yet desperate, he started reading. The book challenged his entire perspective on procrastination. It was not just about laziness or a lack of willpower, it was about fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being perfect, fear of disappointing others. Author words hit home. Arav had always been a perfect perfectionist. His high standard often paralyzed him, making him avoid tasks altogether. He realized that he associated work with stress, which made him not to do work. The book offered a new perspective. Instead of seeing work as a burden, he needed to make it part of a balanced life, filled with reward and relaxation. The first strategy he implemented was the unschedule. Instead of filling his calendar with work obligation, he first scheduled his leisure activities, morning run, weekend outgoing, and time for his favorite hobby or favorite hobbies, photography. Surprisingly, this shift made him feel more in control. Work no longer felt like a thief stealing his time. It was simply something that fit into his schedule. He also started using the 30-minute spirit technique. Instead of thinking about an entire project, he committed to just 30 minutes of focused work. No distraction, no overthinking, just a short burst of effort. To his surprise, once he started, he often continued beyond the timer. The hardest part was simply beginning. Arav also learned to change his inner dialogue by stopped saying I have to finish this and started saying I choose to start this. This small shift removed the weight of obligation and gave him a sense of control. Over time, his anxiety around deadlines began to fade. Despite these improvements, setbacks still came. One day he faced a particularly difficult project. The fear of failure crept back in and old habits resurfaced. He procrastinated, convincing himself that the deadline was still far away. But then he remembered a key lesson from the book: forgive yourself and move forward. Instead of beating himself up, he acknowledged his struggle and restarted with a fresh approach. Arab's journey was not about becoming perfect, it was about progress. Slowing his relationship with work transformed, he found joy in small wins and stopped letting perfectionism hold him back. His productivity increased, and within his confidence, he landed bigger clients, started building his agency, and most importantly, regained control over his time and life. The biggest lesson he learned: action is always better than inaction. Even imperfect action moves you forward, and that's the essence of now habit. Breaking free from procrastination by embracing the present moment and taking the first step. Okay, so this is all about for the today's video. If you found this story inspiring and want more insightful content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel Master in English, and stay tuned for more amazing book summaries and lessons. See you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care. Have a great day. Keep learning, keep growing, keep signing.